Hello, I'm Joffe Rosenberg, the host of Designing Successful Startups, where today's guest is Natalyn O.
And the reason for that is the number of these entrepreneurs that start their endeavor with an idea that's half-baked, that they're not entirely sure about. It becomes just a passion project or just an idea that doesn't have an end destination. It's like getting these guys, it's like giving these guys a car, and they're so excited to drive that they just start driving. And by the time they're down the road, they're halfway out of gas. They've only got a quarter of a tank left, and you're like, well, where are you going? Well, they're like...
Natalyn, or Natty as everyone knows her, is a wife and mother of 4 beautiful children. As a former NCAA Division I athlete, she learned quickly the power of the mind on human achievement and has taken her drive and passion for sports and brought it into coaching and the business world. Natty has 25 years of business and entrepreneurial background. She studied human behavior for years, why people start but don't finish, what makes a high-achieving person successful, what is the difference between someone that seems to have it all together and someone that can't get out of their own way. After her own personal struggle with anxiety, she became a woman on a mission to understand thoughts, emotions, and their impact on the physical body and ultimately the impact on our lives. In 2020, Natty partnered with a nonprofit and combined her knowledge and experience and combined it with their 14 years of research, development, science, and evidence of human behavior from working with over 10,000 people to create and implement a new approach to emotional intelligence. And here is Natty. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this. I'm excited to have you on. You know what I like to do first is to just get sort of a little bit of context and by asking you, where are you originally from and where do you live now?
I'm originally from Idaho, and I now live in Utah, just south of Salt Lake City, which we're really excited about hosting the Olympics next. If anybody's looking for context of where that is. That's where I live now, and I've actually lived here now longer than Idaho, which is a big deal for me. I still claim Idaho roots, though. Very important.
One of the things that I know about you is that you were an NCAA Division I athlete, but I don't know what sport that was.
Yes. Well, I played women's soccer. I played basketball my freshman year, a little bit of redshirting to see. I loved basketball. It was my first love, but soccer took over when it came to college. So I played primarily soccer in college and got to play at the Division I level for Brigham Young University. So it was a wonderful experience.
So you'd already moved to Utah to go to school.
Yep. And once I got here, I just got sucked in, right? I graduated, got an internship at a company here and started my career, and things kind of launched from here. I've moved around a little bit in between, but keep finding my way back.
And have you been a skier for a long time?
Oh, we do love to ski. Yeah. I snowboarded for a while. I was one of those people who skied and then chunked out the middle part of my ski career for snowboarding. And now I'm back to skiing because the catching an edge is just too much when you get older. I've decided it just hurts more.
Yes, I can imagine. And so from south of Salt Lake, what's the best? Park City?
Park City has some beautiful resorts, especially if you're a skier. Like Deer Valley is one of my favorite places to go. They don't allow snowboarders, so it's just beautiful snow. It's just skiers, and they do an amazing job keeping up the hill. So that's one of our favorites. But we live just 10 minutes from Sundance. So if you've ever heard of Sundance Film Festival, we live just 10 minutes from Sundance. So season passes to Sundance because we can just go for an hour or two whenever we'd like. But when we go for a weekend, we would go up to Park City.
So I went to, for 35 years, I never missed a year going to Alta. Oh. And I was a ski bum there when I was 19. But Alta has been getting harder and harder on my knee. They have some, and I can't avoid the really challenging stuff. So because it's just, I know it so well. So I had to basically stop going to Alta, and I've switched to Deer Valley. So I might coordinate with you when I'm coming out, because maybe we could take in a few runs at Deer Valley.
That would be excellent.
Tell me a little bit also about your history of companies that you've started. to up to this point?
Yeah, so I had a really interesting career. I started in corporate America and was there for about 14 years. And when I left there, I started my first company, which was a consulting agency. And then I realized all the companies I was going to all had the same problem. And so I started a tech company and started developing technological solutions to solve the problems of my clients, and started building a service model on the consulting side and a SaaS model on the technology side, and found that I could build a really nice residual income base coming from the SaaS side. I would work with a client, implement our software, leave the software, and have that managed by my tech team while I moved on to the next client, and kind of had two companies going simultaneously there. And over time have started 3 additional technology companies, and have just I've had a great opportunity and great success in my career, and had the opportunity to build these companies up, and done some mergers, done some sales, had some failures, right? I think I've experienced, out of the 7 companies that I've started, I think I've experienced a little bit of everything in the entrepreneurial journey. So really have had a fortuitous career with a lot of experiences and a lot of great opportunities in my life.
Did you fund them organically by starting the services and then using that to grow the company, or have you ever had to raise money from investors?
Both. Yep, I've done both. My very first company, we did it organically, where we grew small, and then we infused it with our own capital. So we took a pretty big risk. I called it skydiving without a parachute. Right, I left my corporate job, started my consulting agency and my tech company at the same time, funded it myself with all of the savings we had in the account, and rolled the dice. And that was a big move, a scary move, right? And also, I don't know that it's any more scary than going out and raising $1.5 million from other people who want to put their pressure on, and they want to see their return on investment, and they want to push hard, and they want you to push timelines even when you don't feel like those timelines should be pushed. So I don't know which one of them's hard. You just have to choose your hard. They're both hard.
And when you raised money, were you able to find investors locally in and around Salt Lake?
Yep, we had both. So we found both local investors, and a couple of our local investors connected us to additional investors that were not local. We brought in a capital raise round and had about 4 different investors involved in our capital raise.
And now you're part of, it's called Ascend EQ.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, tell us about that and what that company does.
Yeah, so I started that company. That was a bootstrap company because I had already sold my previous company, so I self-funded Ascend EQ, and started that out and built a company where we are clearly and functionally designed to do one thing really, really well, and that is to work with business owners, whether they're startup entrepreneurs or whether they're CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations, working with those running businesses and their executive teams to actually create an environment and a culture and an opportunity for growth. And really, we dig in and get involved when it's time to scale and grow and move the needle. And it's been a really, really rewarding business to be a part of.
Is part of what you do at Ascend EQ working with founders a lot?
Yeah.
As opposed to the bigger companies?
Mm-hmm. So I work with, it's about 50-50. I would say half of my clients are startups, and the other half are large corporations. So I have companies that range anywhere from just getting started in the very beginnings of their business, and they haven't even launched their product yet, all the way up to $1 billion, like 2.7 billion, I think, is my largest company that I work with right now. So anywhere in the mix, we work with them, because principally based, the principles of success for the executive management team or for founders of companies or for owners of companies, principally based, you have to show up the same, whether you're starting your company or running $1 billion enterprise, you have to show up the same. And that's where we really focus our energy.
And what do you end up doing for, a typical startup founder? I mean, in my experience, you're going to run into most of the time, you're going to find startup founders who don't have a lot of experience, may never have done it before.
Very true. And we do run into that a lot. And those people are dealing a lot with self-doubt, and a little bit of imposter syndrome and a little bit of everybody else knows how to do it and I have to follow everybody else syndrome. And that's really not the way. We get involved with entrepreneurs and really build from their base foundation of what their passion is, their idea. The roots of their business are founded in who they are, and we make sure that they dial in first to who they are and then what they're ready to do. And we dial into that because so many people want to go start a business, and when they go to start the business, they spend so much time looking around them at what everybody else is doing and building the initial part of their business out of fear. And that's when they make their big mistakes. The passion, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the idea, the creativity, that has to be nurtured and leaned into, and with some safety, with some boundaries involved so that they can actually make good, sound decisions. But people are ready to do this more than they give themselves credit for. And they get hesitant, they get scared, and then they make really stupid decisions out of fear. And that's usually where we see people start to have their downfall in their businesses. And when we can catch it right there, we can solve some real problems and save them from some disaster.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing for the first-time founder. And
very real.
One of the things that I have personal experience with is first-time CEO, raising some money, and I had come out of a technical background, which a lot of founders of tech companies are in that same kind of model, and they don't feel ready to do sales and marketing, which they assume is really important and is going to be a near fatal gap in their experience base, and so this is where they back away, and I didn't have somebody early enough telling me, no, actually, you're exactly the person that needs to do this, because you're not going to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff in the first 6 months, 12 months. You've got to just somebody's got to show the passion and the knowledge about what the company is going to do in terms of solving, a big problem.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, well, how do you get to them at this point? Because this is just, 2 or 3 or 4 people that are starting it. They're the founders. They know something really big. And then how do you find these people, or them find you?
Yeah, most of the time they find me, is the truth. And usually they find me because they have been told by a mentor or somebody else, like, invest right now. Like, don't go blow your first shot and your big idea. Invest now in having this type of support and coaching as you go through this early part of your business, and it will pay huge dividends down the road. So I had one CEO and his executive management team that they're running about a $200+ million company right now. And his executive team have sent me probably my last 12 clients in a row, because they are a venture capital firm. And every time one of their clients comes to them, now they're coming back to them and saying, if you don't go through this process, we don't bring in our VC to your organization, just because they've learned the power of how important it is for these guys to be making sound choices from a place where they can capitalize. We don't realize we use a lot of science in terms of how the brain actually operates to help these guys understand that when they get scared and when they start making decisions out of fear and out of, I'm not good enough, and I have imposter syndrome, and this isn't my expertise, and this isn't where I was going to go, and I just had a great tech idea, they start to minimize the value they're bringing to the table, and they start to make fearful choices. And that is when they will make their big mistakes. These, especially in technology, and you know this because you've done technology. I mean, good heavens, if you're a founder of a tech company and you can bring your passion and enthusiasm to solve the problem that you're trying to solve to one person who wants that problem solved, even working with that one client for a minute to actually fine tune your offering, that one client, one opportunity, one introduction into the marketplace done correctly can establish a foundation for growth that is exponential. But too often there's a comparison. You know, we talk about imposter syndrome. Where the heck does that come from? One, it comes from comparing themselves because they read some article in Forbes magazine where this guy launched a tech company and it spun off instantaneously and had 100 million downloads and they sold for $1 billion. And now this guy's trying to figure out why they can't get one client. Or I got to go build a huge sales organization because I got to go get my 1 million downloads. No, you need one download. If you get one and that goes really well, you have a foundation for established exponential growth because you're actually solving a problem in the marketplace. Like there's that imposter syndrome comes from comparison. And then it comes from them not remembering who the heck they are in the first place that brought this idea to the table. Like the passion came because they had an idea, and not an idea that necessarily already existed, but a new idea. So then by the time they get the fear involved, they start adjusting and morphing their own product and their own tech and their own solution back to something that already exists in the marketplace. And then they're just a new product in the market that's not even as good as the existing product in the market. And I've watched technology companies diminish their value like this over and over and over again out of just pure fear and imposter syndrome.
You know, having the investors be a channel for you sounds ideal. So have you made an effort to get the word out to lots and lots of investors in your area?
Not yet. Right now, I'm pretty full. Like I take on new clients, but like, for example, for the next probably rolling out the calendar for the next 6 months, I have room for one additional client right now. That's it. And so
Hey,
I haven't attempted to do more.
The listeners better pay attention and jump on that.
Yeah, no, I love working with all sizes, right? And I love working with startups because it's super fulfilling and rewarding for me because the impact is felt and noticeable immediately. I can walk into a giant sized organization and we can move the needle and it's huge, it's massive. And the difference of $20 million to a $2 billion company, as you know, is a little bit of a drop in the bucket, which sounds bizarre, and it's true. But when you take a startup company and you can actually get them to their first million, and it's life-changing. And so there's a level of fulfillment in what I get to do that I love, and I love working with the early entrepreneurs because of that.
Hi, the podcast you are listening to is a companion to my recent book, Tech Startup Toolkit: How to Launch Strong and Exit Big. This is the book I wish I'd had as I was founding and running 8 startups over 35 years. It's like a memoir of my entrepreneurial journey. I tell the unvarnished truth about what went right and especially about what went wrong. It's for the founder, the CEO, and wannabe founders of tech and non-tech startups. You can get it from all the usual booksellers and also from the publisher at Manning.com. I hope you like it. It's a true labor of love. Now back to the show. What we've been talking about is it may be in the general category of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we run into that all the time. And what people don't realize is that the anxiety that they're feeling, if they don't understand it and they don't understand what to do about it, it will lead them to make poor choices because of the way our brain actually operates. There is a layer there where once our prefrontal cortex is actually consumed by concern and anxiety, there's a literal disengagement. And that right there makes it so that your logic, your reason, your wisdom, your creativity is not what's driving the bus. It's your emotional reaction and the need to create safety for yourself that starts driving the bus at that point. And that is where we make the biggest difference, because we can come into these young entrepreneurs or large organizations, whatever the case might be. Anyone running a company experiences this, and your thoughts are laden with concern. And just to give you an example of how this works, it starts with one thought and then it swirls. And I want you to think of how many times you've done this. So we get a young entrepreneur who says, oh my gosh, I need a sales and marketing team, because if I don't have a marketing team, I'm not going to sell anything. I don't sell anything. I'm going to be doing all this work. I've worked for 2 years and I need income, and my wife's not going to let me keep doing this much longer. And I got a kid on the way, and oh my gosh, we got to pay the bills, and I'm running out of money in the bank, and I got to either go find an investor. I got to sell this thing. Oh my gosh, I got to sell this thing. I got to find a sales and marketing team. And this plays on a loop like a really bad 80s mixtape, right? And just keeps going and going and going. And they don't have one concern or two concerns or 10 concerns. Now they have 10 times the 1,000 times they've heard it. And we got 10,000 concerns, and they start showing up in their own company, completely overwhelmed, totally fearful, and anxious as all get out about building this business, because now it has to succeed. It has to sell. It has to go, and it has to go right now. And that anxiety leads them to make poor choices. And so that is the spot that we engage and help them understand how to process the concerns that they are having, how to actually understand what they're actually thinking through, and how to actually take those concerns and organize them, understand them, and then actively engage with them from a point of control, what they have control over in alignment with where they ultimately want to go. Not where you think you have to go right now to get safety. Where do you ultimately want to go? What do you have control over? Let's make decisions in alignment with that. And let's settle things back down, calm the anxieties, bring our brain cells back to the table, and let's go build something beautiful from that place of knowledge and wisdom, not that place of fear and anxiety.
So do you have personal experience with anxiety?
Oh, I do. Massive. I had, after coming out of my athletic career and starting in the corporate world, I had a few good years, and then I started feeling tremendous anxiety. I was on a fast track in my corporate role in a leadership position. They didn't have a lot of female leadership in the company that I was in, and I kind of got cherry picked as like, we're going to fast track you into leadership because you've got some skills. And I really, to be completely honest, feel like they had to have some female leadership in the world we're in. You can't have all men running a company. It just doesn't look right for investors, right? That is what it is. And I say that as a female coming on and saying that very often that causes problems. I'm not a huge, like, give the job to the woman because she's a woman. Like, if she's skilled and talented and deserves the job, give her the job. And that, I believe, is anyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, or gender. But in this situation, I believe I got fast-tracked because I was, in fact, a woman. And I do believe I was qualified. And I do believe I got a leg up because I was a woman, but I felt a lot of pressure for that. And as I started entering into these leadership positions, I didn't have a role model or a mentor. And there was only a couple of other women in this organization at the time. I didn't love the way they came across. I didn't love it. And if you look at the only examples women have in leadership positions in our society, they're movies like The Devil Wears Prada, or these, they're terrifying women that carry these leadership roles. And I had this identity crisis of like, that's not who I am, and that's who I have to become. And I didn't even like it. And I got into this battle of not even liking myself, which, by the way, is what entrepreneurs land in all the time, because they can't figure out who they are in this pursuit of what they're trying to accomplish. And anxiety started to run me. And I found myself, I woke up one morning in a closet, literally just in the fetal position, and I couldn't move my hands. I couldn't move my legs. I ended up hospitalized for a full panic attack. And that's when I started taking the concept of anxiety and how it affects ourselves and our lives much more seriously, and engaged in a really deep study of that, and started engaging with a nonprofit organization that had 14 years of research and development on these topics, and working with them developed a curriculum, a program, a framework, if you will, for actually educating and working with people. And then I took that specialization into the business world to work with people just like me, who had no idea that this type of pressure or stress or anxiety could cause health problems, relationship problems, and quite frankly, lead you to make really poor choices in your business and cause you business problems. And I have watched personally people lose millions of dollars because of anxiety and because of fear and because of imposter syndrome.
Did you already have your family when you had that full-on panic attack?
I did. I had 4 kids, and I had 4 kids. I was at that point then starting to venture into, do I want to run my own companies? And that's when I really, like 3 of my 4 children, and then that is when I decided to actually take the leap. And I just decided, I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to stay in a corporate career. I'm going to go build my own thing. And that's exactly what I did.
Tell us, what are the ages of your kids?
So I have 22 years old ranging down to 11. So I have a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So 1 girl at the top and 3 boys down at the bottom. So,
And are they all sports, fanatics?
My daughter, she played soccer for a little bit, but she was a theater, she loves the stage, and she loves to sing, she loves to dance, she loves to act. My two boys were wrestlers in the middle, and my youngest son has not decided if he likes sports or not, but right now he loves the violin. So we're on that right now.
Wow, you've got there's a lot of diversity in that
Yes.
family.
Yes. Well, and honestly, with kids, just like I tell entrepreneurs, like you pick your passion. You don't try to fit in a box. You don't try to be what everybody else wants you to be or thinks you should be. You find your passion, your space, and you own that space, and that's where you get your unique and competitive advantage. And I believe that with kids too, that when they find their space, that's when they'll have the most fruitful lives, because they get to be passionate and unique about who they are.
So you've worked with a lot of startup people, and you yourself have done some startups. Do you actually talk to any of the startup people about grit? Is that something you kind of work into your discussions?
Yeah, I mean, we don't always call it grit, but it absolutely is the definition of grit. At the end of the day, like when you're going to start a company and you're going to be in the new part of company, like there has to be a realization that the journey is not going to be easy. And we often say, like, one of my most common phrases as I talk to entrepreneurs is choose your hard. It's hard to self-fund and it's hard to raise money. It's hard to work for yourself and it's hard to work for somebody else for your entire life. It's hard to build something successful, and it's hard to know that you can't. It's hard to engage in the startup company that you have to really, wear all the hats. And it's hard to have a mundane life where you get to wear one hat that you don't even like. So choose your hard. And that takes grit.
And what about you? What about where did your grit come from?
I think it came a lot from athletics, and growing up, I was the youngest of 6 kids, and my father had cancer and was sick when I was very young. And I had this realization when I was very young that if I wanted to get something, it was going to come from me. My family did not have the financial means to take care of anything like that. So I started companies. So I started working and mowing lawns when I was 7. By the time I was 16 years old, we were mowing about 75 to 80 lawns a week, and I sold my company at the start of my senior year of high school. And then I built up a new company and built it back up to about 45 to 50 lawns and sold that before I left high school. So I sold both of those companies before I left high school and was able to, through the sale of both of those, able to actually buy my own car, buy my first home. I had a full scholarship with soccer, so I didn't have to pay for my schooling, and I used all of the additional funding that I got in additional scholarships that I applied for anyways, to also help me just buy my first home. And I bought a duplex and rented out one side and lived in the other, and just started to build savings and build wealth and build an opportunity to have the kind of financial life I wanted to have. And I just realized young that that I could do that. Like I could do that. I could find ways to do that. And that's one of the things that I like to tell people. Like nobody's journey is the same. Nobody's journey is the same. Nobody's ideas are the same. Nobody's business is the same. No one's business grows the same, sells the same, or lives the same, or scales the same. And that's perfectly okay because it's yours and it's not anybody else's. And if you'll let it do your way, amazing how it turns out to be good for you.
It's amazing because I always talk about grit with everyone that comes on this podcast, and it's a really consistent thing that it's some sort of life challenge that people point to as the source of grit, or it's a very strong example, like from a parent that I've seen sort of that theme. So did your father end up passing away when you were still young?
He did. Yep. He passed away during my freshman year of right at the start of my sophomore year of college. So he made it through my high school years. And then he passed away when I was 20. So that he was young. He was only 54 years old when he passed away. So not a big full life for him. My mom is definitely an example of grit for me. She's been, they were married. I think she got married to him when she was 21 years old. So married for 30 plus years, and then she's been single ever since. She's now 83 years old and a spitfire. You cannot stop that woman. We need to stop her from driving sometimes, but you can't stop her. She won't sit down. She's got plenty to do, and she makes sure you know about it. So she's definitely an example of grit in my life, of somebody who just took life as it came and just kept on building.
Wow. A single mother of 6 kids.
Yeah, she had her work cut out for her.
That's a good example of grit for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the audience of this podcast being people that are early on in their startup journey, or maybe they haven't yet started it, but they're thinking about it, they want to do it. Is there any theme that you've seen that you sort of would like to sort of paint, a picture you would like to paint for the listeners about how they should think about this startup? And you've said part of it, which is, if you've got the passion, go with that. But beyond that, what would you say?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Passion's just it's like the lighter, right? And what are we starting on fire here? So, the first thing I tell all entrepreneurs that I work with is that I need you to paint vision, and I need it to be crystal clear. And by vision, I don't mean goals, and I don't mean dreams, and I don't mean some aspirational thing. And I'm not looking for Q1 statistics, and I don't want a business plan. I just want to know, what are you creating and why? Like, what is the passion? What is the fulfillment? What is the purpose? What is the mission? What is the vision of what you want to create? At the end of the day, when somebody uses your technology, why is their life better? And why do you care? Why are you trying to make that part of their life better? What does it do for you? Where does your fulfillment come from? If you're building a piece of software for a corporation, why? What does it do? Why does it benefit the organization? What are they getting out of it? What do you get out of it when they get that out of it? Why do you care? Because if we can cast that vision first, and not just cast it as a casual idea, but down to the nuancial details of what you really, really want in that space, and write about it. If they will do that and get a clear picture in their head, we will solve about 20 of their first mistakes before they make them. And the reason for that is the number of these entrepreneurs that start their endeavor with an idea that's half-baked, that they're not entirely sure about. It becomes just a passion project or just an idea that doesn't have an end destination. It's like getting these guys, it's like giving these guys a car, and they're so excited to drive that they just start driving. And by the time they're down the road, they're halfway out of gas. They've only got a quarter of a tank left. And you're like, well, where are you going? Well, they're like, well, I want to go to the mountains. You're like, really? Because there's mountains on the east, west, south, and north sides of us. Which mountains are you going to? Well, I want the kind with lakes and hills. Okay, well, there's mountains on east, west, north, south side of us. Which mountains with hills? Which mountains with waterfalls? Do you want it to be cold or hot? Like, where are you going? And they get in the car, they start driving, and with all of this passion and enthusiasm, and by the time they've got, one tiny little gallon of gas left in the tank, is the first time they stop and say, now I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I don't actually know where I'm going. I'm just trying to get to the mountains. And if you don't know your end avatar, your end customer, your end purpose, like, what do they get out of it? Who are you going towards? Where are you moving towards? Then when you start to make every decision, what is your litmus test about whether A or B is the right decision in that setting? When you're going to build out your technological suite, are you building with A or B as your user interface? Like, what is the ultimate experience? Where are you going? If you don't know, you'll do a whole lot of driving, burn a whole tank of gas, and end up in the middle of nowhere with mountains on the northeast, west, south of you, and you don't know which ones you're driving to. And by the way, you can't get to any of them now with the gas you've got in the tank. And now we have a problem. We got to fill up again, and that hurts. And so vision, like real crystal clear vision about what you're creating. Spend more time on that and less time on your business plan, because your business plan that you lay out that goes from A to Z that you're pretty confident is going to work, you'll go from A to B, and that whole business plan will be blown to bits. And you and I both know that. You've built businesses. You start your business and you get 2 steps in and you're like, oh, that's not going to go as I thought. I would rather have them spend more time on vision first, crystal clear on what they're trying to accomplish, and then establish the plan, and make sure the plan is established based on what the right next step is, always with that litmus test of destination on our minds, so that when we get to a fork in the road, we know whether we're turning right or left, and we can do so with intention and not just right seems easier right now, because that's what I witness in these entrepreneurs is their journey doesn't go from here to here, right? Their journey goes from here to 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 here because they didn't know where they were going. They just had an idea. So vision, like crystal clear vision, spend the time on it, dream about it, visualize about it, write about it, do what you need to do to know exactly where you're going and what you're building. And I don't give a rip if you don't know how to do that. Matter of fact, I don't want them to know how. I always say the how is none of your damn business. Get out of the way and allow your vision to take some roots so that we know what we're building. Because if everybody in the world were to build a business based on knowing how to get from point A to point Z before they ever started, we wouldn't have any of the technological advances we have. People they didn't know how exactly. They just had the dream or the vision, the purpose, the intention. And the point of that and the fulfillment of that was so compelling that they had to keep taking the right next step as they got there. And ultimately they found the how. So I tell people, spend more time on vision than your business plan to start with. And make sure you know where the heck you're going and what you're building with crystal clear clarity before you start spending the money, before you start writing code, before you start hiring people, before you start selling it. I had an entrepreneur I worked with that was selling his project. And I would ask him questions. He's like, well, we haven't made that decision yet. I'm like, stop selling a pipe dream and air. You're going to put egg all over your face and ruin your company before you ever start. Like, what are you selling? What are you building? What are you doing? Know it, really know it. And don't get so overly anxious about starting your company that you start acting without direction. That's what I see hurts people the most. And that's my number one piece of advice for entrepreneurs as they start their company. Don't get so anxious to do before you know what you're building. The doing and what to do next and the right next step will show up for you if you're crystal clear on where you're going.
Very well said. That was such good advice.
I have experienced that. I've done that wrong, which is why I know all about the tank of gas in the middle of nowhere. So.
Oh, I do too. Yep. Actually, experiencing it to a certain extent on this current one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna call that a good conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Designing Successful Startups podcast. Check out the show notes for resources and links. Please follow and rate us at podchaser.com/designing successful startups. Also, please share and like us on your social media channels. This is Jothy Rosenberg saying TTFN, ta-ta for now.